Welcome to Awesome Movie Year, the podcast where we take a look back at an awesome year for movies, which is every year. I'm Josh Bell, film critic and writer, and I'm joined by my co-host.
I'm Jason Harris, filmmaker, comedian, and Joshua Bell, you're making me do the podcast on this old muddy patch of land.
See, right before we started recording, Jason said, I don't know if I can do the grandma impression. And then you break out the perfect grandma impression for this movie.
Once the red light's on, baby, I got to go all in.
Oh, yeah. So. Beautiful job there. I have to give, between that and your Beast impression, you are killing it this season. I think you really are.
What a universe. We're going to have a multiverse by the end of the season of characters to play with.
Mm-hmm. Beautiful. So in this season, we are talking about the films of 1946, and we're here to talk about the Golden Lion winner from the Venice Film Festival, which is Jean Renoir's. I'm the French speaker.
Yeah,
that guy.
Elmer Fudd is filling in for Josh today.
Oh man, see, Jason brought it, but I'm losing it. This is Jean Renoir's The Southerner, one of 6 movies that Renoir made during his time in Hollywood in the U.S. during World War II, when many European filmmakers fled Europe and came to the US. And we talked about Jean Renoir in our 1939 season to talk about The Rules of the Game, which is still, I think, considered one of the greatest films ever made. The films that he made in the US, generally not considered the greatest films ever made.
Yeah, I would agree with that. And the films he made in France are the highlights. But why I was interested in this is because I had seen The River from the 50s, which is a movie he made in India, which I think is very cool that he's doing this. This one just felt like he was appeasing what that kind of rah-rah American spirit that just the opposite of the biting, acerbic kind of takedown that Rules of the Game was.
Right. And I think a lot of times you have, not only in the classic Hollywood era, but even now, you get filmmakers who come from other countries, make movies in the US about life in the US, and they have that good outsider perspective to be able to, whether it's a takedown or just a very detached observation maybe about the realities of life in the US from an outside observer. And as you said, this movie is super corny. It is a very pro-America piece of storytelling, rural storytelling about this hardscrabble family of sharecroppers in the South who work hard, and through their ingenuity, they gosh darn it, they succeed, and they're all white.
I mean, it's a white family. I'm not going to get into that issue. I see what you're trying to do, Josh. And no, I'm not going to get baited by you. But it definitely made me miss the kind of grittiness of something like The Grapes of Wrath, where it's a more honest look of what's going on there. Recently we saw Train Dreams. I don't mind if you're going to tell the story of pull yourself up by the bootstraps, do the hard work. But even this, there was so little conflict, and just really, it just felt like you're saying, like, it was a bunch of let's give Renoir some slogans from the government and have him write a screenplay on, what America's supposed to be. Very strange. I don't get it. And I don't get the backlash against it either.
Yeah, it is weird. It was adapted from a novel called Hold Autumn in Your Hand by George Sessions Perry, which was a successful novel. And, he was a Texan himself. This is set in Texas. And it is, as far as I could see nothing in this movie that was negative. In fact, that was to the movie's detriment, I think, that there was nothing in this movie that was negative about life in the rural South, about Southerners, about Texans, anything like that. And I imagine that they adapted this novel because it was beloved by readers and by people who liked its depiction of life in the rural South. So it is very strange that there was a backlash to this.
I've written some of the things I found, the objections in the American South. The film was viewed as a sordid depiction of life in the southern states. What was sordid about the movie, Josh?
Nothing. Again, this movie is so corny and wholesome. You've got this married couple. I mean, the closest this has to sordid is that it is implied that the main character is kind of hot and ladies are attracted to him, but then he is very, very faithful to his wife and does not stray in any way, even by like taking a glance. So I don't know what could be sordid here.
Banned in Tennessee by, and this is a great Tennessee name, Lord T. Binford, who called it a slur against Southern farmers. What was the slur against Southern farmers here, Josh?
I don't know. Again, he works really hard. He doesn't give up. He plants the crop. He plants cotton, and the spoiler, the crop gets wiped out by a rainstorm that's shown to be practically apocalyptic. I don't think there's anything implied that he messed up, and that's why he lost his crop. And after a tiny moment of doubt, he decides to persevere. So I really don't know. He's a good family man. He's got 2 kids. He's got the wife. Everyone pretty much seems to like him except his neighbor, who's an asshole. But
right. The neighbor's a jerk. I'll give you that. So,
yeah. I mean, I think the telling thing here is that among the organizations that spoke out against this film was the Ku Klux Klan.
And that's confusing too, because like you said, it's all whiteys, So have you ever talked about it in one of your meetings?
The meetings of lovers of film, I'm sure, is what you're referring to.
I mean, the United Daughters of the Confederacy, it's called it, praise it for its courage, stout-heartedness, and love of our land. They're still living as the Daughters of the Confederacy, and they're like, we like this film, but the KKK is like, you ladies, you're just as bad as all the other minorities out there. This whole thing makes no sense to me, just as it makes no sense to me that it would win Venice or be considered anywhere near the upper tier of Renoir's work.
Right. I think that is, too, the idea that, no, it doesn't seem like something that is daring or controversial, but it's also not a particular artistic achievement. And from my perspective, but it did win, obviously, that Golden Lion at Venice. It was also nominated for 3 Oscars, including Best Director for Renoir, which I think might have been his only
one.
Director. Yeah, which is crazy. Also nominated for Best Original Score and Best Sound. And even now, like going to Letterboxd, for example, and looking at contemporary people seeing this movie, there is a lot of praise for it as this genuine, naturalistic look at American rural life. And I was amazed at how corny this movie is.
Yeah, I mean, I don't get it. I already mentioned The Grapes of Wrath. Recently watched the seminal documentary Harlan County, USA, which if you want to see a real slice of what it's like to live in rural America, that movie's incredible. So I'm with you, buddy. I don't get this one. Sorry, listeners. We know you love it when Josh and I go at it like cats and dogs, but today we're like dogs and dogs.
Yeah, we are in agreement. And I think this movie has potential. I mean, I was mentioning the racial aspect. It opens with a scene of all of these workers picking cotton, including blacks and whites. And then we have the scene of our main character's uncle basically dying from overwork on the job, not, with any consideration except from his own family members. And you think, okay, this could be something genuine about how hard this is for blacks, for whites, for anyone who's working under this system. And his dying words are, own your own land or grow your own crops. Of course, he doesn't own the land, but grow your own crops. And so instead it turns into this story of, ingenuity or whatever. But for a minute at the beginning, maybe it seemed like it could have been something.
Well, you're right. We've seen plenty of films where like guy has American dream, rents or buys patch of land, right? And while there is potential, they're not able to get it to work. Landlord comes back and says, I'm going to take everything you own. It's right here. We've covered movies like that before. You wrote it in the deal, right? So there's that aspect. There's the aspect with his friend who works in the factory in the city where he's trying to recruit the guy. That could have been a detour where we saw him like have to acclimate to another lifestyle. The friend is clearly an alcoholic. There's angles there that we could have looked at. So everything just feels like, just kind of bleep, 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 sprinkled over here and there, nothing major. So
yeah, whenever it seems like it's going to take a really serious turn, it backs off from that. And I mean, sometimes I was like, okay, I don't need this to go really super heavy melodramatic, but it seems like there aren't consequences for a lot of the bad things that happen to this family. We've
seen a lot of movies like this where in this movie, the boy gets spring sickness. You ever have spring sickness?
No.
What about summertime sadness?
Oh, that I've had. Yeah.
Or the summertime blues.
And spring sadness and fall sadness and winter sadness.
Yeah. We have, Josh and I have a seasonal affective disorder. And if you ask us what season depresses us, it's all of them.
Definitely. Pellagra is the medical name for that. It's a real disease of malnutrition that the child
Johnny.
I thought his name was Johnny the whole time, and then looking on the credit, his name is Jot. J-O-T.
You know who he should hang out with? Jimp from Friendship,
or Jabez. Remember Jabez from the Devil and Daniel Webb's?
With just as a good comparison to that film with Consequences. But Johnny gets the spring sickness. And then he gets the spring betterness, like a lot of these, they would just kill off the kid just to be like,
and I don't need to see the cute kid die, but it just feels like nothing is meaningful here.
No, grandma's always telling stories and she's like, she's talking about her dead husband and all the hard work that he had to put in. And then she's like angry all the time. And then she's like, well, I'm not really angry. I love everybody. I love all of you. You really give me a nice life here.
She's a lot. She is a lot. So critics were fairly positive, although somewhat mixed on this. Bosley Crowther in the New York Times definitely liked it. He said, "The poor white sharecropper, probably as unfashionable a subject for screen treatment as could be contemplated, has been given forthright, sympathetic, and seemingly honest expression in The Southerner. In all, Jean Renoir has subtly combined his camera with sparse dialogue in the native idiom to tell his story simply and beautifully and without resorting to opinion or prejudice. The Southerner may not be a, quote, entertainment in the rigid Hollywood sense, and it may have some flaws, but it is nevertheless a rich, unusual, and sensitive delineation of a segment of the American scene well worth filming and seeing."
Well, I agree that the American Southern farmer, just like the Northern industrialist or the logger in the Pacific Northwest or, the Southern California actor, they're all worth looking at if you make it interesting, right? None of us are ever like, we just shouldn't look at that type of person. Like we want to learn about all. That's the beauty of film. You learn so much about all these different people, but this, like you said, it just felt very surfacey, paint by numbers. I didn't really learn anything. I was getting ready to plant some crops, and now I can't, Josh, because I don't know how to do it because of this movie.
Yeah, and the idea that the dialogue isn't sparse, as you said, the grandma never shuts up, and I feel like there's plenty of dialogue in this movie, and I don't know, it doesn't feel naturalistic. They didn't, they shot it in Southern California, of course. They didn't shoot it in rural Texas, and it just doesn't feel honest or genuine in a meaningful way to me.
Yeah. What do you want to say to grandma, Josh? Come on, let it out. Tell us what you wanted to say.
Shut the fuck up. That's what I want to say to grandma.
Get her.
Come on. Did you not want to say that as well?
No, but Josh, I do have a question for you.
Yeah.
Now, the time period this takes place, Josh, is probably the early 1900s, before, years before the...
No, it's around the Depression, I think, because they have cars.
Okay. So we'll say 20s, 30s, right?
Yeah, I think so.
Josh, what would have your job been as a farmer in the American South during the 20s and 30s?
Hanged in the barn, probably. I don't know. Would not have gone well for me.
Every episode I give him that softball, Dave, and he hits it out of the park every time.
So, what would you do, Jason? Come on.
Oh yeah, dude, I would be terrible at this. Come on, we all know this. cooking. I could cook, right?
Hey, there you go. I can't even do that. I would see if Harmy will hire me at the general store. That I could handle.
The general store would be good. I mean, there's the guy in the city who works at the factory. I don't think I'd be good at that either, but I could probably find something in the city as a performer, right?
There you go. I feel like that's not in the spirit of your question, though, because you're not.
No, I just wanted to know how the death would come to you in this one.
Yeah. It would either be self-inflicted or it would be, kicked in the head by a horse because I don't know how to properly, handle things or whatever.
They would just call you dumb after that. That's
they
what
would.
They would say.
Yeah. So Wolcott Gibbs in the New Yorker refers a lot to the supposed controversy about this, as well as comparing it to a play that I had not heard of, but apparently is very racist. He says,
"What's it called?"
Tobacco Road. Eugenicist, I think. Less racist than classist. I don't know. I looked it up briefly. It sounds, but it was very popular at the time, also about rural Southern farmers. So he says, The Southerner, a moving picture that seems to have stirred up a minor critical tempest in Dixie teapots, actually tells, in a romantic and disinfected way, just about the same story as Tobacco Road, with a succession of melodramatic disasters substituted for the economic forces that destroyed the Lesters, and a hearty sort of comedy, usually based on somebody throwing something, for the shocking humor of a people so used up and degraded that they were no more than parodies of human beings. Since the Southerner apparently attacks nothing except the local climate, if there is a sneer at the sharecropping system, it's almost imperceptible. It is hard to see how it could upset anybody politically, even Senator Bilbo. Its aesthetic effect, of course, is something else.
Senator Dildo, probably, right, guys?
Yeah, no, him I looked up, and he was a famously racist senator from Mississippi. So perhaps one of the people speaking out against this film. I don't know. But, you can't. Senator Bilbo, racist of Mississippi, versus New Yorker critic Wolcott Gibbs. I mean, you can't get better than that.
I mean, and also, Josh, thankfully, now, today, we have no racists in the government at all. Clearly.
Totally.
By every metric that they keep. They're erasing Black history because they're not racist, Josh.
Right.
You see how that works?
Yeah.
You see.
So is this movie like the equivalent of Hillbilly Elegy, maybe the movie about young J.D. Vance?
Yeah, I think that's fair. I bet Bilbo was couch fucking back in the day. So, I don't know. I mean, the only thing I know about Tobacco Road is that's where North Carolina, the basketball, if you're thinking of North Carolina, the school, the basketball team, it's up on Tobacco Road, they say. So I don't know anything about the play. I think this is like one of those you had to be there situations because we're clearly not understanding what any of this controversy is about.
Right. I mean, I think what he is saying here is that he is also not understanding why there is a controversy. So at least someone else, even at the time, is saying this is ridiculous.
Wolcott Gibbs.
Yeah, good old Wolcott Gibbs. So finally, Nathan Kahn in Variety didn't think this was corny enough, it seems like. He said, there is something distressing about the haphazards of the soil's human migrants, and all the squalor that one associates with their condition is brought to the Southerner. An adaptation from the George Sessions Perry novel Hold Autumn in Your Hand, this film conjures a naked picture of morbidity that should be the strongest factor to limit its box office chances. It may be trenchant realism, but these are times when there is a greater need. Escapism is the word. The Southerner creates too little hope for a solution to the difficulties of farm workers who constantly look forward to the day when they can settle forever their existence of poverty with a long-sought harvest, a harvest that invariably never comes.
Billionaires shouldn't pay taxes. I'm going to be a billionaire one day.
I don't see this as stark realism. And yes, okay, they lose the crop at the end, but they get right back up on their feet and they're going to keep on going and live to fight another day. And I just don't see this as a pessimistic movie in any way.
I don't either. I will give credit to that one beat after the neighbor tears down their crop that it felt, and, Sam is ready to give up, that it did feel at least earned in that he's looking around and his family, the wife is cooking, the kids are out, being active. The grandma's hanging up the laundry. Like they're all without knowing how he's feeling, like kind of pitching in and really getting into the lifestyle. So I felt like his moment of, by golly, yes, we will stay and do it was earned. I'll give him that much.
Yeah, I mean, they go through a lot. That is true. And I mean, part of the problem is that they go through these terrible things and then they seem to not have much of an effect. And so by the end, we think, oh, well, this is just another thing. But it is a lot of hardship, definitely. And I think there is a bit of that earned at the end. But overall, not so much.
I told you earlier this week that, because I know you haven't seen The River, and that kind of is like a slice of life in India versus the American South. And I wanted to watch it again because I think that is so much of a better movie than this and done in such a better way. And it's interesting when you're seeing the same director, and Renoir co-wrote this script. So, I don't know. But again, Venice.
Yeah, I don't know. I had not seen this one, and I still have not seen The River. I mean, I think as we probably talked about in our Rules of the Game episode, obviously I'd seen that, and The Grand Illusion, his other very, very famous French film. And I've seen one of his other American films, The Woman on the Beach, which was one that was taken away and re-edited from him. And is interesting, though. You can see in that movie that he's trying to get something gritty and some like psychological insight, and maybe the producers hamstrung him in some way, but there's something there. And I think this movie just doesn't really have it.
I've seen both the French films that you mentioned. La Bête Humaine is definitely next on my list, but there was that one which almost probably translate to A Day in the Park that was unfinished, and it's like I would recommend it for any person who loves film and film history because it's great as it is, and you're watching and you're like, holy cow, this could have ended up being like his all-time masterpiece if he had the money to finish it. So I definitely look that one up, whatever that thing's called.
Yeah. I think you're right about that title, but I definitely would like to check that out. So, Dave, since the last time we watched a Jean Renoir movie, have you seen any of his films further?
Can't say I have, but I would be open to watching some more. And I really thought I was going to hate this, but I had a little bit of fun with it. So
it's A Day in the Country, Partie de Campagne.
Yeah, that's definitely another famous one, and I think that was on when we talked about the Rules of the Game. That was on Criterion along with it. It's probably still there. So
it's like 40 minutes, and you're like, dude, this thing's awesome. So,
yeah, I have 40 minutes probably. So
hey, good for you, buddy.
Anything else you want to say about the background of this film, Jason?
Josh, are there any things besides this that you disagree with the Ku Klux Klan on?
Fashion. Obviously everything, Jason.
Oh, okay. Good enough.
Just in case that was unclear.
Was this once going to be called the Tuckers of Texas was the alternate title. And if the Southerner wasn't sweet and treacly enough, the Tuckers of Texas would have definitely got him there.
Right. And I don't know why they didn't use the title of the novel, which was popular, but maybe it seemed too unclear what it was about. But, this reminded me of How Green Was My Valley, where, it's these working class people in their, rural. That's a little less rural, but it's still, it's a tribute to the family and the hard work and all that. And even that movie had a bit more grit than this, I think.
Yeah, I mean, look, like we said, these movies can totally work. This one, we just didn't think it.
Well, we'll talk more about that then. We'll come back and get into some more general thoughts on The Southerner. Welcome back to Awesome Movie Year. In this episode of our season on the films of 1946, we're talking about Venice Film Festival winner, The Southerner from Jean Renoir. And Jason, we were not into this film. Were there elements of it that you liked or that you thought worked well?
I mean, I liked the thing that, you know what I liked? When the mom got married to the guy who ran the general store, right?
Yeah.
And they did a hootenanny.
Like hootenanny.
Oh, I love a good hootenanny. A barn raising, a barnstorm, and a hootenanny, a square dance. You count me in for that, buddy. That's what I like.
All right. I did enjoy the hootenanny. Although that was another moment where I thought something terrible was going to happen, because you get the dad's his drunk friend, as you pointed out, the drunk but successful, the factory worker who has a bit of money, Tim, played by Charles Kemper, and he puts his bottle of hooch inside the stove to hide it, and then the wife is going to perhaps start the stove, and I thought, oh man, this is going to be bad. We're going to have like some kind of explosion, and it's going to be, the contrast of the happy wedding and then this tragedy, and it didn't happen. He just said, "Oh, I better get my booze out of there," and it's all hot, and he's kind of like,
and they're all laughing.
Yeah, and then it's just funny, and they fall down on the bed, and whatever.
Yeah. So what happens at the end of that scene is it rains,
Right.
And they have to get home because the crop in the rain, and the rain helps spoil the crop, right? And they're like, this is tough. And then they're like, well, we'll just have to fix it. And then they fix it.
Right. I mean, that's a moment, and this is really like basically the end of the movie, but that is a moment, I think, where you imagine that maybe finally something is going to really have these consequences, right? This awful rainstorm. They're away from their home, right? They're staying in town because of the wedding, so they don't even have the chance to do whatever they might be able to do to protect the house or the crops. They come back. The crops are pretty much totally wiped out. The house is basically almost destroyed. The cow, Uncle Walter, the cow, has been set adrift in the midst of the river. And yet, after a moment of doubt, it's all good. Even Granny says, let's stay. And then they leave the cow in the middle of the river.
That was confusing to me because Sam and his friend Factory Guy go and like try to save him, and they're like chasing him, and then they get him, and then they're like, all right, now that we have him in our hands, let's have a good talk. And then they talk, and they're like, yeah, let's go back to the farm. And they leave the cow in the river. I didn't understand that either. But, I think that the example that you brought up about the alcohol, where you're like, this is a perilous situation. Nothing happened. That really is like a microcosm of everything in this film. He's got conflict with his neighbor in that, his neighbor is like, why do you get to be rich and I'm not getting to get the crops, getting them with them rich red? Right there, you, Sam. We're living here much longer than you, and now you got this cotton, this crop here, and I'll give you the water from the well, and this is what happened. Right?
He's an Adam Sandler character.
Yeah. And then he was all like, shabby dabby. Ooh, but so like they even fight and nothing happens. They like get into a fist fight, nothing bad happens. His daughter is really trying to get Sam to bang out, right? Nothing happens there. They got like that weird nephew, right? And like he's like peering and lurking, and I'm like, oh, is he gonna do a murder, or like is he like a child rapist / Republican senator? I don't know what's going on here. And nothing ever happens with any of them.
Right. I mean, and the scene where he really has that violent confrontation with the neighbor, you think it does seem serious for a while. There's a gun involved, there's a knife involved, and the neighbor has gone beyond like, I don't like you, to like, I'm gonna kill you. I'm gonna destroy you. And then not only is it resolved, but it's resolved in the corniest possible way, where they finally catch the giant catfish that everybody's been wanting to catch.
Old lead.
Yeah, lead pencil.
Lead pencil. Yeah. Was that 40s euphemism for penis?
I mean, what they say in the movie is that it's because his whiskers are as thick as lead pencils, but maybe it is. I don't know. It's a little thin. His whiskers are not as thick as penises.
No, I mean, it could be a thin. Is there like, a micro penis refers to length. Is there a micro penis via girth?
I don't know, and I don't want to find out. But
I just want to learn from the tech. Like, is it?
I'm gonna go out on a limb and say it was not a
spaghetti penis, maybe.
Yeah, no, I think it was literally just a
thread penis
for the catfish and how large it was.
String penis.
Mm-hmm. You keep going with that though. That's good. That's here.
But I do agree with you, Josh, that first of all, I don't know if that was a real fish or not, but that was a big ass fish. So
It was, yes.
if it wasn't a real fish, they did a good job making it look real, So, yeah, you ever catch a fish, Josh?
Maybe. I remember when I went to summer camp, they had fishing was one of the activities, and it was just like a pond that they like dumped fish into, and then you could catch the fish. And I must have caught at least one at some point. It was like an activity that we had to do all the time, but
Yeah.
I wasn't really into it. And it wasn't real fishing with like, it was just like a stick with a
A hook?
fishing line on it and a hook. Yeah, it wasn't an actual fishing rod or anything. We didn't learn anything
No.
about how to really fish. So no,
Unfortunate.
were you fishing?
Oh, I did some fishing in my day, buddy. Let
yeah?
me tell you. So my grandparents had a house on a lake in upstate New York, and I have two fun stories for you. There were rumors of a sighting of a very large, I believe it was a bass, and I caught that bass, and it was a big deal because everyone on the lake was trying to catch it. And then,
do you think everybody else made up the stories just to make Jason feel good about himself?
Well, how would that work if I was like 9 or 10 and I actually caught the fucking bass?
Right, no, and then you'd be like, "Oh, I caught the biggest."
Tell you, yeah, that must be it. That's the one. Good job.
Well, everyone else was fishing, and we all caught fish. It wasn't like I had nothing to compare it to, right?
Yeah.
And my uncle Herman, who was like, the expert fisherman, I remember my brother was like, who was like 6 and 10, was like, "This is great. Jason and I caught all the fish, and Uncle Herman caught nothing." And they're all laughing at him. But anyway, my Uncle Herman cooked up that fish for dinner, and I felt terrible about it that we did a fish murder.
Oh, really? You didn't enjoy eating the fish?
I didn't. I was just sad. I do like eating fish now, but not if I have to catch and know that they're murder done. And then the other one that I remember was we were fishing on the dock once, and my dad's like sidearm cast it. And he caught me in the back with the hook and was reeling me in. And I was like, "Dad, don't do that. It hurts." So fishing.
That's awful.
How about fishing, Josh? So,
what I want to know is, did you ever eat possum like they do in this film?
I never ate possum, but that's okay. I did, for my documentary recently, interview Oscar Goodman, and he told me that Benny Binion, his favorite meal was a squirrel stew.
And they imply here that possum is not very nutritious, right? Because that's in fact why old Jot, that's why he gets the springtime sickness or the spring sickness, because of malnutrition. And there's not enough nutrients in possum, and that's all that they're eating, really, because that's all they're able to catch.
Yeah. I mean, I think it's like an Appalachian delicacy, right?
Maybe, I don't know, but they're not in Appalachia in this film; they're in Texas. So I don't know. I felt like, again, those are details where maybe you could learn something about life in rural Texas or how it was trying to survive like this. They talk about they can't afford vegetables, and they can't afford milk, and they can't even afford like the seeds for a vegetable garden, and they can't afford to buy a cow. And it's only through the generosity of Tim, the factory worker friend, that they get the cow so that they can get some milk. And then eventually they plant the vegetable garden, which the creepy nephew stomps all over.
Josh, I just typed in most popular possum recipes, and according to Google's AI overview, which could never be wrong.
No.
Roasted possum with sweet potatoes, Cajun fried possum, and possum stew, like you just probably mentioned right there.
Are there any restaurants here in town that serve possum that maybe you could check out?
I wonder if we'd have to either go to like a New Orleans staple or a Southern restaurant. You'd probably have to special request it, but honestly, I don't really want to do that.
You're such an adventurous eater, Jason. I'm shocked that you're not up for trying possum.
I mean, I didn't say I wouldn't try it if it was served to me. I just said I don't want to do that. So, the thing with the buddy, right? Is it Tim? Is that his name?
Yeah, I think Sam is the main guy and Tim is his buddy.
So they're like, Tim's like, you could come work in the factory, $7 a day. And he's like, wow, that is tempting, right? And then at the end, he's like, Sam's like, or Tim's like, hey, I can see you're not going to come to the city with me, right? And he's like, nah, I belong here farming the land. And then Tim gives this like totally like talk about like a first draft of a speech. And he goes, I guess it takes all types. There are those on the farm who do the farming, and that's A-OK. And then there's those like me who like that big city living, working in the factories and doing factory stuff. And that's also A-OK. And I'm like, what are we doing, man? This is like Angel Studios presents The Southerner or something like that. So.
It really is. I mean, and that I think is the takeaway from the movie, and why I don't get how it could be controversial or seen as, what the 1940s equivalent of woke, because it's so patriotic and rah America. And like you said, we got the farmers and they do their parts, and we got the factory workers and they do their parts, and it all adds up to America. And sure, we're all poor and we're going to die of malnutrition, but gosh darn it, we're Americans.
Yeah, those fat cats keep getting richer. I can see the Klan not liking it because no black people were murdered.
Yeah, but they don't, again, aside from that initial scene where you see them also picking cotton, and pointedly, we're now going to tell the story of the white family. And I'm sure among workers in cotton fields in the 1940s, the white workers were not
definitely the majority, right?
So, I'm sure that was not the case, but that's who we focus on in the film. It is very strange. And I think, the performances, we haven't really talked about that, but Zachary Scott and Betty Field, who play the main couple, they play it with dignity. I mean, they're not playing these characters. The grandma is a caricature, right? But our main characters, they're not. They're presented as genuine, honest, again, hardworking, also not stupid. Maybe they maybe don't have a lot of book learning, but they certainly know about crops. They know about what it takes to be a farmer. They know about animals, all the important things that they need to know. And they're good people. They have good morals, in contrast with the neighbor who's a jerk. I don't see how you could object to these things.
I got a question. It's basically a one-room shotgun shack they're living in, right?
Yeah,
pretty much. And you got the kids sleeping there and Granny sleeping there. How are these two fucking, Josh?
I feel like there were a lot of families that lived like this for a long time, and they just did it. And they didn't worry about that.
Maybe they were like, we had the kids already. And
no. I mean, they just did it the sex.
No, I know what you're saying. I know what you're saying. I'm saying, like, maybe they're like, we had the kids already and every day's exhausting. It's good that we got it in while we could.
I mean, that's possible too, but I feel like families like this also eventually have more kids. They're always big families because, of course, you couldn't guarantee that your kids would survive. So you got to have a lot of them so that they can live. Doesn't Granny reference a bunch of her kids dying at one point?
Yeah. A lot of them died. That's true.
Yeah. So you got to churn them out, really. That's what's important here. So I bet they were doing it. I bet they were doing it when the kids were asleep or when they thought the kids were asleep.
If we get 10 new Patreon subscribers, I'll have sex with someone while you guys are in the room.
No, don't thank you.
Trying to get us some Patreon numbers. That's not a
motivation for anyone, for us or for people to sign up.
Don't you want the Patreon to get jumped up here?
I don't think anyone is going to take that as an incentive.
Michael Keane, are you listening?
Jeez. All right. Only if he can film it, maybe. But anyway, this is such a wholesome movie, and we're talking about such depraved stuff here.
Well, I'm trying to make it interesting. And I mean, you are too. And we just did not find this film interesting at all.
Yeah. I mean, I think I was joking before we started. Like, I saw this movie a few days ago, and like, it really has struggled to stick in my memory because it does feel, I mean, if I had seen this movie without the credit, the director credit, I never would have guessed that a filmmaker like Renoir, one of the most renowned filmmakers, artistically ambitious, claimed all this, directed a movie like this. I would have thought that this was some B-level Hollywood journeyman who came in and just, piled on the corn. I don't really get it.
Yeah, I mean, while it's certainly able, it doesn't feel like there was any of those masterful flourishes that we've seen of him before. Perhaps that opening sequence, which, like you, I'm having difficulty remembering, but I believe that was a one shot where he was moving from space to space on the field. But after that, it was just very basic coverage for the most part until you get these two dudes chasing Uncle Walter, the cow. And then, like you said, they just give up once they catch the cow. So it doesn't really leave you with anything anyway.
Yeah, I mean, I think beyond that opening shot, and not only visually the shot, but also, again, the presentation of life in these cotton fields where someone just dies and everybody moves on, is indicates a more sophisticated film than we end up getting.
I think we should rate it, Josh.
So, well, Dave said he liked it. What did you like about it, Dave?
Let's put it this way. I don't think this is what Renoir wants to hear from some dude in 2026, but I had a fun time with it. I don't know that I liked it. I just thought it was absolutely ridiculous. You guys saw me over here just giggling through all your whole conversation. I found all these things just delightfully ridiculous. And the granny, of course, is just a total caricature. A lot of the dialogue, some of the speeches like Jason brought up earlier, and just how just insanely just dull it all is. Like a lot of the stuff
That's
happens.
what you liked, how dull it was?
No, I had so much fun just chuckling at this movie from beginning to end. I had a good time with it, but I don't think it's good at all. And I was just super, super confused by a lot of the really good reviews of this one online. It just doesn't make sense to me.
Yeah, it sounds like you were laughing at the movie.
I think I was. Yeah. So,
yeah. It's not a comedy, FYI. I mean, the granny is supposed to be kind of funny, I think, in her cantankerousness, but otherwise it's not a comedy.
No, not at all.
Just on that granny note, like, I realize we're saying like, oh, she's so over the top and this and that. But there were plenty of this character we've seen a billion times in the movies also, right? The kind of old, kind of crotchety, full of piss and vinegar grandma character.
Right. Yeah. She's not an original creation per se, but I think she is, in her ridiculous complaining, is supposed to be amusing, whereas nothing else here is really meant that way.
Well, that would have been
serious.
So much more fun if, like, this is what a French filmmaker thinks the American South is. And everyone was just trash in their own way. That would have been awesome. So
yeah, but it's not, whether it's the source material or the other writers or the studio or whatever it is, he's not presenting things that way. So, do you want to rate this out of 5 possum stews?
Five possum stews, Josh. 2.5. It's capably made. It's short, and I didn't like it. 2.5.
I'm with you. 2.5 possum stews for me, which is far more possum stew than I would ever want to eat. But yeah, I mean, Renoir knows what he's doing as a direct. Like, it is absolutely crafted properly, and there are some decent performances, and it does move along, but totally forgettable, I think. So, Dave,
I got to just say, it is strange because it's Jean Renoir, right? Like, if if 10 years after Schindler's List, Steven Spielberg made The Southerner, you'd be like, what the heck, bro? Like, what are we doing here? You just did Goodfellas, Martin Scorsese. What are you doing, man? So.
But obviously, as
he had to work.
Was just pointing out again, even now, people see this as one of his masterpieces potentially. So yeah, I do not get it. Dave, how many possum stews do you give this?
I think both of you guys' 2.5 is probably appropriate, but I went with 3 for this one.
Dave just sitting over there amusing himself, giving it a better rating.
I mean, to be honest, a 3 from Dave, I feel like is a real kind of showing some real willpower on his part.
Yeah.
So. All right, we'll come back and talk about the legacy of The Southerner. Welcome back to Awesome Movie Year. In this episode of our season on the films of 1946, we have been talking about Venice Film Festival winner The Southerner from Jean Renoir. And as we said, we discussed him in our 1939 season in our episode on the rules of the game. As far as his legacy, this was the 4th movie he made in the US. So he made 2 more American films after this, The Diary of a Chambermaid and The Woman on the Beach. That's the one that I've seen, which was taken away from him. And I think it's cut down to like 70 minutes, but there's some flashes of interesting things going on there. And then he went to India to make The River, as Jason talked about, and then back to Europe and continued making films until his final film in 1970, won an honorary Oscar in 1974. So, Jason, you recommend The River?
Yeah, I mean, I think if you want a better movie that's dealing with kind of life like this, I mean, it's clearly a different film, but yeah, I would watch The River. I would recommend all the Renoir movies I've seen, but this one, to be honest with you. So,
Yeah, I mean, certainly his French films, and that film, The Woman on the Beach, is an interesting curiosity, more so, I think, perhaps, than this one. So, all the actors in this movie are kind of B-level people. Zachary Scott, who plays the lead, and this, very wholesome guy, was known more for playing shady characters. I've seen him in a few noirs. He starred in a film called Guilty Bystander, where he is this alcoholic cop trying to find his missing son, and is in Born to Be Bad with Joan Bennett, I think, is the main star of that, and he's also the sleazy boyfriend in Mildred Pierce. So good at playing sleazy guys, and so this is kind of out of character for him.
Well, that's nice that we see him do something else, Josh.
Yeah, he died relatively young. He died in his early 50s. Betty Field, who plays his wife here, Nona, she also died in her mid 50s, had a prolific career in film and theater and TV, but neither of these were particularly breakout leads in any way.
No, I mean, Granny, who you keep talking about, who I imagine,
not?
Right, I imagine we'll see her again before the season is over or after the season's over at some point in time, because Josh, she was the mom in It's a Wonderful Life.
That is Beulah Bondi. And we might have discussed her. She's also Jimmy Stewart's mom in Mr. Smith Goes to Washington, which, of course, we did an episode on that.
She's Jimmy Stewart's mom in 4 different movies, Josh. And she was twice nominated for Best Supporting Actress and won an Emmy for guest starring on The Waltons, which seems completely appropriate at age 87.
Yeah, I mean, she had a very long career from the 1930s into the 1970s when she won for the Waltons. Both of her Oscar nominations from the 30s for movies I had never heard of Human Hearts and The Gorgeous Hussy, which is quite a title right there. But talk about long careers. The one person I want to highlight here who is an amazing Hollywood figure is Norman Lloyd, who plays the weird, creepy nephew. Had one of the longest careers ever in Hollywood. He started in vaudeville in 1923 when he was like 9 years old. His final film role was in the Amy Schumer movie Trainwreck in 2015.
Wow.
Yeah. I know you love that stuff.
I know you love that movie too, Jason, right?
I do not love that movie, but I did mark the same thing because I know you love classic Hollywood careers that go a long way.
I just think it's amazing. He lived to 106. Started in film in the 1940s, worked with Alfred Hitchcock in Spellbound and Saboteur. He was in Charlie Chaplin's Limelight. He was in Dead Poets Society, Martin Scorsese's The Age of Innocence. He was on Saint Elsewhere on TV, was a producer and a director. I mean, I remember, again, Trainwreck, that wasn't that long ago, and he was working at that time. And it's like, oh, here he is again. I think the other one was Eli Wallach, who was also around 100 at the time and was still working. And it's amazing to me.
Eli Wallach wasn't in Trainwreck, was he?
No. But he was another actor who was 100 years old and still working at the same time.
You should do a Norman Lloyd podcast that just goes through his whole career.
There we go.
What would we call that?
1920s vaudeville excerpts.
That would be cool.
And then go to Trainwreck. Yeah.
We need a good title for it.
I mean, we're not going to beat Feel the Burns, I don't think, unfortunately.
No.
So I do love, I haven't listened to it yet, but Keith Phipps, who's a great critic, recently started a Harrison Ford podcast called Ford Focus. And I gotta give credit for that as a title.
Yeah. I mean, obviously Norman, you would do something with Normal or Norm, but it's just not coming to me.
Yeah,
Josh,
Norm, right? What did they always say on Cheers when Norm showed up in the bar?
They would just yell Norm, Josh.
Yeah, that's not as exciting.
No, that's not good. So maybe there's something with Lloyd that we can work with. We'll have to come up with it. Josh, one other, I like fun facts. Jack Norworth, who played Dr. White, wrote the lyrics to Take Me Out to the Ball Game. Good job, buddy.
I mean, and that's a piece of Americana that I feel like I love your little encouragement for him there. But that's a piece of Americana that I think is obviously super corny, but has the right balance and that we can kind of get behind. And I don't even like baseball.
Stormin' with Norman?
Yeah, but that makes it sound like it's a military, right? Storm and Norman, that was a general in the Gulf War that people always call
Norman Schwarzkopf.
Right, exactly. That's who I think of when you say that.
Yeah. All right. Well, I tried, Josh.
I feel like we've really exhausted every possible avenue of discussion related to this film. So is there anything else you want to say about the legacy of this?
There sure isn't.
All right. Well, that is The Southerner. And that's this episode of Awesome Movie Year. You can find us online and on social media.
Yeah, we're at awesomemoviepod.com. Awesome Movie Year on Facebook and Instagram. If you watch one of our movies on Letterboxd, tag it with Awesome Movie Year. That's where I'm Gopher Jason. You can find me on all the socials, Jason Harris Comedy or J Harris Comedy. Hey, Josh, I'm also a new correspondent on the CityCast podcast. How about
that? Check that out. Great podcast. And Dave and I have both also been on CityCast. We're big supporters. Check Jason out there. And I would love for one of our listeners to tag us on Letterboxd with this movie, tag us Awesome Movie Year, because maybe there's something we're missing. So we'll see. You can find some old things for me at joshbellhateseverything.com. I'm at Josh Bell Hates Everything on Facebook, at Signal Bleed on Blue Sky, and on Letterboxd. And check out our producer, David Rosen's awesome podcast, Piecing It Together.
Check out Piecing It Together wherever you listen to podcasts, and follow us on social media at PiecingPod.
Jason, what's in our next episode?
Well, Josh, you're going to have to hold off for a second because I've come up with the name of this Norman Lloyd podcast.
Oh, boy.
We're just going to call it Loitering.
Yes.
All right. That's not bad. That's not bad.
Thank you.
We're not going to do that podcast, but I have to give you that, though. That's almost as good as Feel the Burns.
I knew it would come to me at some point. So.
That's very good.
Josh, while Loitering might be the best podcast we have never put together yet, the best picture of 1946 was The Best Years of Our Lives. And that's what we're going to watch.
I think that will be more interesting, hopefully, than The Southerner. So tune in next time for The Best Years of Our Lives. Thanks for listening to Awesome Movie Year.
Thank you for listening to Awesome Movie Year. Make sure to follow Awesome Movie Year on Facebook, at Awesome Movie Pod on Twitter, and at Awesome Movie Year on Instagram. And if you like the show, review us and rate us with 5 stars on Apple Podcasts.
An All Points West production, produced by David Rosen in Las Vegas.